Bob, what's up? So, have we ever done this? Like, or we just chat on Discord? Like, have we never been on a?
I feel like Keith, I talk to you like multiple times
Yeah.
every single week, if not every single day on
Uh-huh.
Discord. We've never actually sat down and had a conversation
Yeah.
together. So this is
I don't think
actually gonna be really
so.
fun. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I have to know this because some people might not know this. It might be not even said. The silver FP hoodie that you have on.
Yeah,
What's the
dude.
deal with that?
Merch,
I'm the one
baby.
that made the original email for it. And
Heck
then
yeah, dude.
then Alex and the rest of the guys took hold of it when I ran away from baseball and basketball.
Yep. Yeah. So for people that don't know, like I obviously started out with everybody else, with Keith
Yeah.
and Laird and everybody playing the football side. And then
Yeah.
when the US sports were introduced, our great buddy Alex Hooper and Keith came up with this idea of SOAR FP, they'd
Yeah.
like projections and all of these
Yeah.
things to help make it easier for all of us to play baseball, to play basketball. And what ended up happening is that I'm a huge baseball guy. And
Right.
Alex and I, like, we talk every single day. And that
Alex is the best. Alex is
Alex
absolutely
is
the best.
fantastic, and he
Yeah.
was a sad loss to the community when he got a real job that didn't let him play this. So we miss
Correct.
Alex, but Alex had put together a good team at Solar FP, like our ownership team. So it's
Yeah.
like it's me and Alex, or it was Alex back
So
in the
cool.
day, and Kevin K Lamp. And so for anybody that plays on the baseball side, they know who K Lamp is. And
Yep.
so K Lamp and I have been doing a lot of shows for Solar FP,
That's awesome.
and and it's our projection service. So
Yeah.
essentially, what it is that we created an app that takes proprietary projections that we put together that Alex helped develop way back in the day,
Hmm.
and then we get all that into the app, and then with that app, we were actually able to manipulate the API to allow our users on the baseball side to upload all their stuff directly into
I
Solar
heard.
before it
I
was even
heard.
legal before, right? So
That's so cool.
it's been awesome, dude. And like we love it. And so now, we have part of our ownership team as a programmer, and like gotta pay the programmers. Like he
That's
doesn't do
lovely.
these things for free. And I always imagine, because this guy, Captain No Sweat, legend in the
Really.
baseball community,
Okay.
he's a pilot, Keith.
That makes
So
sense.
so
That's why
so
you don't sweat, right?
I imagine him being like, you know what, I'm gonna fly from Brussels to Paris. And like in the middle, he's like, oh, so we're updated their API.
Hold on.
Let's change the code. You know what I mean? It's like, what's going
Okay.
on?
I have to know this. Maybe you need to ask him for this. So none of us that are watching this have ever edited a lineup or done a soda transaction while driving. Like never, right, Bob? Like
Never,
never.
never, absolutely
I
not. No,
would
no.
never dare to. You think he's done it while flying?
Man, I hope so. Could you imagine like getting on like the Delta Wi-Fi and being like, why won't this damn thing connect? Like I thought I had super Wi-Fi in the pilot's chair.
I mean, I,
But
I assume he's not blocked from anything. He's like, dude, this is important for my work right now. Like,
I
do
mean,
you
it's
know how stressed I'll be if I don't submit this lineup and I have to land this plane in the fog? I can't do
right.
that.
Like, and you're getting like all of the messages because we have a Discord server, and we have
Oh
a
no.
big community, right? And people are like, the app's not working. He's like, oh crap, let me not finish this flight and take
I
care of this real quick.
can I
This is
pull
what I
over?
imagine going on
Pull
in my
over
head.
or co-pilot, you got this, right? I got this little side gig that I need to take care
We're
of.
like, guys, hold on. We got to make an emergency landing so I can update the API and the code.
That would be
So
amazing.
then we'll
Have
get
you
on there.
have you guys seen Iceland before? We're gonna go check it out.
Love it, dude. So yeah, man,
That's so
this is
good.
our
No,
merch.
I
Like we
love
just got
that.
to put this
No,
out. So
that's so cool. That's so cool.
yeah,
Like
man,
I
I
don't know
love
if
it.
you ever know this. Like before I did that little, and the funniest thing with that whole thing was it was just when they announced baseball. I'm like, I texted Hoop, and I'm like, if you've been wanting to do a podcast, because I had owned a DFS site way back in the day, and
Yep.
he did some really cool content with a buddy of his, like breaking down soccer. God, I'm trying to remember it was Tilt City, he called it, just because it was like they would just tilt what they didn't do. And I'm like, hey, I'm down to go talk. I'm like, I don't know baseball too well, but I can host. And if they ever do basketball, I'll be down. And unfortunately, family and soccer and work got in the way of me staying on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, try to find an hour for homies a week to try to at least spread the love this way.
And Keith, I love it because Hoop is an amazing guy, and a lot of people don't know Hoop, but like
Yep.
Hoop really helps set a lot of this stuff up. And Hoop has been a big
Absolutely.
reason, in my opinion, that the U.S. sports have
For
done
sure.
so well
For sure.
because
There's a lot of
Hoop was able
people.
to
Yeah.
put together community. And
Yep.
that community has been very vocal and very active to get things in place. And I mean, I never thought I would get back in. I always so where NBA is like playing in Asia on the
Okay.
football side. It's like I want to
I
play
like
in. I
that.
want to buy in at the start of the season, and then you buy in. You're like, I don't know who any of these freaking people are.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I realize I just threw away a bunch of money, and then you sell off your stuff at a loss.
Right.
But Hoop, and now there are other people after Hoop have come through that have made NBA a lot more palatable, a lot easier to use
Yep.
and play. And
Well,
so it's a big shift.
and I'll just say this, and then we'll move to probably what most of the people here talking about is football and learning more about you. But when we first did that, and obviously, like you said too, I want to make clarification that Hoop unfortunately is no longer part of that. He
Yeah,
got an awesome real job that would technically not allow him to do this anymore.
correct.
Um, but he laid the groundwork for sure. But the coolest thing about NBA, and I'm actually curious from your opinion because I've been removed now for about a year or so. It was the coolest thing right away because it was a definitely advantage to have, which is NBA is completely projectable. You know how
Mhm.
many guys, how many minutes a player has. You know potentially based on like who's in, who's out, what his usage, like how many shots he's probably going to get. All this stuff is pretty data driven, and of
Yes.
course you're gonna have outliers, but you can get really close to median outcomes. And
Hmm.
I remember going to him right when he did. I'm like we need to find out, can we scrape some data? And kudos to him, he got somebody to figure it out right away. I'm like, it's points per dollar. That's all this game is. It's just a points
Yes.
per dollar game. And if we have a sheet that tells us right away who's points per dollars, we can either flip these cards or we know exactly who the optimal plays are that you have to have. And that's the game. And to his credit, he figured that out right away. Um, but do you think, is that now become a hindrance that everybody has that points per dollar data? So there's going to be like, is it like Chalk Fest where everybody goes, okay, I don't even know players anymore, but Wembenyama's out and his backup center's in and he's only on a cap hit of 10. Like
Yeah.
you have to have him because he's going to, get 28, 30 minutes type of thing. Like, does that make
Hmm.
it harder now in terms of like everybody knows how to beat the game, so to speak? Or what, how
Well,
do you find it?
I think that you are being very fair to our community, and I don't think that our community actually understands how to beat any of the games in SORA. Like, let's be
Interesting,
completely
okay,
honest.
okay,
So the reason, I mean, I think that, yeah, what you said makes sense for a lot of people that will pay extra money for a service like Hoop used to provide, right? Like they
well, that
know
you guys
more.
are
They
now
are they're
still, yeah,
truly invested. So you
true,
see a clumping of people that pay for these services, that know these things at the top. Like this is why with like Solar FP, like I'll use baseball as the example, we often after every chase and every single week, we had somebody finishing in the top 5 or 10 every single
right,
week
because
because
you
we
guys have the
know what
data,
works. Like and we
right,
talk about it as a community to understand how to attack the game, right?
gotcha,
And NBA is a very similar kind of thing. Like you need your studs, right?
right,
You need them. You need to find the cheaper plays to make it a little bit easier to weave in multiple studs because with NBA, it is a peak game. Like it's
100%,
great that you have a 10 cap that's replacing Wemby, but if that 10 cap is only going to score 20 points,
right.
right? Like
That's
he's
not
used,
the what you
doesn't do
need.
anything
Yeah,
for you,
yeah, you
right?
need the guy
But
that's going to drop 40 on a 10.
you need
Yeah,
that Devin Booker that's at like a 38 that can pop off for 82. Like
right,
that's what you
right.
need to
It's
win,
that
right? But
differential.
yeah. So, but it's interesting because people that are in the know have a lot of those lineups. Like I was fortunate enough to come in second place in champ. And so it's in season champ, it's cash rewards and kind
Right,
of stuff
right.
like that. So I was fortunate enough to come in second. And I bring this up because you and Larry talk about XP a lot and collection scores and all those kind of
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
And the reason that I lost, I had the exact same lineup as the team that won, except the team that won had all new in season cards, and I had
right,
one card that was a classic card.
right. So
So
they edge you.
yeah. And so it's weird because I had enough bonus XP in my collection scores that I still almost won, Keith. Like my
Right,
cards were only 10%. And honestly, 10% in like the second week of starting it means that like, holy crap, like that's a big score.
for
So
sure.
yeah, it's interesting, man. And when it comes right down to it, the strategies, you can pull some of the strategies over from the football soccer side.
Right.
You just have to understand how to play the game. And I think that a lot of people go in not understanding what the games are in the US, like what the rules are, which makes sense. And
Well,
it makes it a little bit more difficult.
and I think the reality too, And I'll give you guys one more shout out, then we'll move to football. Is in football, it's actually a lot less projection driven game. Like you know, layered and sort of data I've talked about a lot. There's a reason they did AAA pick scores rather than a number, because the
Yeah.
number is just there as kind of a median, but they understand that the you know, let's call it the deviations away from the median are so wide that, you know, they're likely to be right and say Cucho is projected for 66 and then he drops 100. And people are like, you guys were 34 points off. I'm like, no, no. 66 is an incredibly high median. We're telling you he was a great play. So, you know, whereas in basketball or baseball, that actual statistical number matters a lot more.
Well,
So
and
I'll just
it's
say that, go ahead, go ahead.
that's a great point because like just look at what happened yesterday with the Man City Sporting match.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
like I mean,
What a glorious thing. Sorry for any City fans out there, but come on.
I'm
So good.
Portuguese, so like I was
So good.
thrilled.
So
But
good.
I had a team that was like DeBost and Pedro Gonzalez and Gyökeres and Trincao all on my team. But I'm like, they're playing Man City. So I put a DMP keeper. I put Allison in there. So like that's just a big nil. I'm like, oh
Oh
man, you're an
no!
idiot, Bob.
Oh
Idiot.
no!
Yeah, right. So
In
make
your
this
defense, you run that simulation 100 times. What
right.
does that
Right.
result? 4 times, 5 times,
Yeah.
maybe?
It doesn't happen. And I mean the
Yeah.
scarier thing is I put Vardiol in my U23 team, and of course, right before that match, Malik Tillman from PSV just managed to hit 100. I'm
Rush.
like, oh, I could
Yeah.
actually win my first D1 U23. And then Vardiol's like, nope, hold my beer. And he's like,
Did he just get wrecked because they just got run over? I
nope.
didn't look at the scores at
They
all.
gave up 4 goals, and he conceded a PK. So for like most normal people, Keith, that's a like minus 34 score. But
Right.
Vardiol somehow still managed to get 12.5. And like, I know that's not a
Oh my
lot,
god. But it's
but
better
when
than
you have
zero.
negative 16 and negative 20 at you, like you're still really freaking good.
You
So
know,
yeah, it's wild, dude.
you know the only thing that stinks about getting rid of cap modes? You used to at least have the solace in that, and you go, well, at least his cap hit's going to be lower. In
Yeah,
case I
right.
need to use him there, at least his cap hit's lower. And now, you know, we so rarely see the cap game. So again,
It's when you buy good cards like that though, Keith, like you expect them,
oh,
even in
100%.
tougher matchups, you still expect them to
But
be like mediocre,
that
like
wasn't
not
sub
get you out of the rewards. With the
right.
capped modes, you're like, well, that guy sucked anyway, so that's not a shock. You're like,
And then you go,
okay,
but it was like the
yeah,
solace that we had is like, you know, the guy put up a zero and we're like, well, at least his cap hit goes down next week. So fun fact,
yeah,
um, yesterday, and this is actually really why I wanted you to talk about, because I want to talk about some strategies.
heck yeah, dude.
Because when I think Bob, I I think I've gotten a little bit known in the community as just being able to like come on and just throw some stuff at people that they hadn't thought about. I guess I have a little bit more of a contrarian mindset. But
Mhm.
you sir, you are like my partner in crime when it comes to this stuff. Um, so it had nothing to do with the game going on. It had everything to do with foresight. But I
Mhm.
sold most of my Man City guys yesterday.
That's awesome.
Funny enough, after the game was over, I got notifications. Well, they were all Jersey mints.
Mhm.
So some dude that just buys Jersey mints spot Diaz, Stones, Kovacic, all classic cards.
Yep.
I I'm just done with them. And it was so funny. I had decided I was done with City before the match. And then,
Yep.
then I saw the match up. I'm like, oh, I really do just want to be done. It's just City's one of those teams, and I think that a strategy a lot of people are not employing in the game is really focusing on teams and like players that you just feel good every weekend going in with them that they're going to play. Like the amount of times that Ruben Diaz specifically has been in this ultimate spot, like they're home versus a Luton, and then you go, God, they have a freaking UCL game, but oh, he sat the midweek cup game out, so he should be
Yep.
fine. And
Yep.
then all of a sudden you get the team sheet, nowhere to be seen. And then Stones, don't get me started. I have an Ake, same deal. And you're just
Mhm.
like, I, and even, you know what the worst part is? You know, the worst part is you can't even trust Ederson anymore to like start
No,
because Ortega's good. Their backup is good and they want to get him work. So I'm just like, you know what? Y'all are good. You're really good players. You're really good cards. You all have international equity. I'm going to miss all that. But I got to do some mental sanity and just be out of this. this city
Thank
game.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Because so one of my good buddies on Sorare, hey Dino,
Okay.
and like
Yep. Yep.
he has like he's won a lot of money in season comps with a Man City stack, right?
Right.
It makes sense. Like, and I always say to him, like, how do you do this? Like, he goes, you basically, if you know who's starting, you win every single. You can essentially win with Man City every week, or come close, or get them the money or something like that. And I go,
Or
but
at least have a
how do
good
you
sweat,
know? Like,
right? Good
how do
sweat.
you know? Like, how do you know though? Because Pep Guardiola, when he wakes up on game day, he has no idea who's going to play.
Yeah.
Like, and you can't like check what okay Gundogan is like setting up your team until after lock is done. Like, and that's what we do now. We just look at okay, we're like, oh crap, okay, he's not
Yeah.
starting today.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird mix of trying to figure it out. And I said to him multiple times, like, I want to do better
Mm.
in season comps. What that says to me is I want more Arsenal pieces to go along, or more Arsenal, more Man City pieces. But as I watch them play, I'm just like, man, these teams are number one super expensive. Like I sold
Yeah.
all of my super rares the other day. I still don't have enough money to buy like Holland. And I was like, okay, well that sucks, you know. But you try to figure out like what makes sense for you and like what your strategy is going to be. And
Yep.
I'm more like you when it comes to prep, right? Like I haven't bought a stack,
Right.
but I have guys that can do well. So like I put together like Burn Lennon and Lend and Jedi,
Yeah. Sure.
from Fulham. Like
Yeah.
like and those guys like Jedi hit like an 88 and like got me a box, like and Burmo.
Great.
Like those kind of guys I have on my team and I use them every week, right?
Yep.
But I know that short of a miracle, I'm probably not going to win a competition. I can get in the cash and I can get promoted, but I'm more likely than not going to win.
Right.
And I have a different approach than most people. Like I know when we talk on shows, people are like, I want to hit the lottery. I want to hit the
Of
lottery.
course.
I want to win, right?
First or
And
bust, it
everyone
seems.
wants it. And everyone's like, but I only won this. And my approach is I'll take whatever cash I can get. I'm going to
So
take whatever I can get. I'm going to slowly build up. And you know what? And then I'll take that cash and I'll buy a classic Vardiol and I'll put him in U23, right?
or you have the classic of Ardiol, and let's say that you just mentioned a couple Fulham pieces, a couple Brentford pieces, and you have them in season, and you're staring down and you're like, oh man, I got Gavardiol, home versus Wolves. Please don't screw me, Pep. But that could be like, having those stud classic guys, I think is something that not a lot has been talked about in season. I feel like we've been too busy shitting on the game, whether it's that, the essence went down, the classic sucks, or, in season's not enough. Like there's always something, right? And the reality becomes like actually right now there's more ways to I'm just gonna call it game the game. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Gavardiol as your classic card, a Bruno, like all these guys that everybody just naturally goes to and they says I need their in season, but they could make great classic cards. And when they don't fin your in season, guess what? They go to another sort of classic game and you can yield there. I think it's like
Let's talk
there's
about that more,
more.
please.
Yeah, go
I
for it.
really want to talk about that more
Yeah,
because
let's go.
I think that the community, I don't know, like I know some people in the community have realized like what you can do and how you do that, but I mean the smart play, and I said this at the start of the season, is that you want a few studs
Hmm.
in classic mode, right? You
Yep.
want a few studs because you can insert them. So you want your at the start of the season, your Rodris, your Sakas, like those
Yep.
kind of guys, your Trent Arnold Alexanders, the guys that will hit 100 that are
Yep.
going to be more expensive on the in-season side. And so if you look at my gallery, looked at it back then, like I had those guys. I still have Rodri, I still have Soccer Classic, I had Salah, I had TAA, I
Okay.
had those guys that you felt comfortable putting them in there and you didn't want to spend $1,500 on their in-season card,
Right.
right? So that's how I was doing. That's how I kept getting promoted. Rodri was hurt, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But I was using Saka. And so in my eyes, smart managers are going to find who the truly understand who the studs are.
Yep.
You buy them in classic because they're like a third of the price and you
Yep.
can still
If
use them,
not
right?
worse. If not worse. I
Right.
feel like the
And
I
then
feel like the
but
spread's even going up.
But with all the changes to Classic, I think that you're buying those guys, but you should be buying U23 Classic guys. So this
I
is
can see
Cole
that.
Palmer and Saka. So my approach has completely shifted. I have essentially stopped buying classic cars that are not U23 guys.
Right. Because you want that double utility type of thing.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
now I make a decision every single week. I'm like, Are Saka and
I
Palmer
like that.
going into my U23 team, or are they going into a real team with Gavardiol? And so, of those three, so Vardiol, Saka, Palmer. The only in-season card I have is Palmer because I
Okay.
wanted the forward version of him. I
Which
wanted
was
to
a
be
good
able
move.
to.
It's a good
I
move.
wanted to be able to run Florian Wirtz, Palmer, and Musiala. That's in Gavardiol in my U23 team. That's
Oh
my
man.
actual U23 team, which is stupid.
Yeah, it's
If
awesome.
you told me, so think about this. That team 2 years ago probably cost like $25,000 in rare.
Easily.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
now I got for like less than a grand. I'm like, okay,
Right.
you know,
That's and have you had success yielding in U23? Like do you feel like
I
U23 is like do you think I haven't talked to Harry about this funny, but do you think it's kind of watered down a bit?
it's not so for me. I still have that lottery wanting, and I think the only
Of course.
lottery in this game is winning U23 D1 and winning a Yamal or a Jude or a Verts.
Right.
So
And
my
season.
teams are
And
actually
season of course too.
yes.
That's the
So
kicker.
the name of my U23 teams are literally Yamal, Vert, and Jude. And then the backup teams are Saka and Palmer.
I
Like,
like that.
like these are the guys, like this is because if I win U23 D1, and I was able to climb all the way up there. I think I have two other teams in U23 and D2 as well.
Okay.
So if I'm able to win U23, I have a chance of winning the so rare, the essentially what's left of the so rare lottery, which
Right.
that would be exciting to me because I kind of disagree with you and Larry. I just think winning cards sucks in general.
Yeah.
It's not why I play the game anymore
No, I get
because
it.
I see so many people just constantly disappointed. And the problem with card rewards, in my eyes at least, is that with a gallery like mine, there aren't a lot of cards that are just going to immediately go
Correct.
in and play,
Correct.
right? So like when I say Yamal is an upgrade, like Yamal is like the only upgrade over a Cole Palmer or a soccer forward card that I
Right.
could possibly get.
Right.
So I've set myself up with stacked classic cards that are all U23.
No,
And
I
I've
love that.
taken this approach just because I want to win that lottery. I'm still putting in season comps like all over the place, and I'm taking whatever cash I can get from those. But it's not my focus in the game anymore. It is purely U23 because if I win, that's the one I want to win. That's the rush I want to
No,
feel. You know,
I love it. I mean, I'll be honest, I've never really been a U23 bro. I stumbled into as like cards got cheap and before we all realized that oh, this is actually gonna be the new normal, you're like, oh, that's a U23 goalkeeper. That's too cheap. Let me so like, I got that's how I end up with like a Patrick Schulte. I had a few other U23 guys. So I got to U23 by accident, so to speak. And then
me
I
too.
haven't like focused by it. But do you think the competition is less like now that because I do think it's not really an afterthought for a lot of people. You don't think?
I don't think so. I mean,
Okay,
I think that people that get to D1 are thinking like I am.
okay,
I want to win a Yamal
okay,
in season. I
okay.
think that because scores are high, Keith, and like with U23, because in all things in life, younger athletes are a lot more random. You're going to get a
Right,
lot of
right,
like
right,
very up and down kind of things with them to base. Like, I mean, you look at college sports in the US, there's a reason that when Kentucky sends out their basketball team with like 14, 18-year-olds, you have no idea what's going to
right,
happen,
right.
right? And
And then
with certain
they're all first team
students,
All NBA 5 years
yeah,
later, and you're like, you
eventually,
didn't even
right.
get out of the Sweet 16. How are you
Yeah.
guys?
So, but with that, like on the U23 part, I don't think the competition has gotten less.
Okay,
The thing is, though, you can target more of the UCL weeks where there just aren't that many U23 keepers available,
gotcha.
right?
No,
And when
that's
you
smart.
have my studs, you can keep winning, you keep doing these things.
Right.
But I find it fun because I also know that with the guys that I bought, so Verts, Musiala, okay, like all of the guys in there, Palmer, Saka, all of those guys when they age out,
They're still gonna be studs.
they go right into a champion team.
Right.
Like and like with those guys, I can win classic champion like
Well,
every single week, right? So I have built my gallery in such a way that even
yeah.
though classic is nerfed in some ways, it's still I like certain guys, and that's kind of
Ah,
how I've been looking at it in general, Keith. And to me, it's I'm not happy unless I'm winning. Is really what it comes
we
down
we
to.
we all know that, Bob. We know
Yeah,
that about you.
but I mean, when you set that expectation, you know what you're going for. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like it changes how things kind of look. And like, and I can say this because I've been on for a long time, right? And I'm used to winning in this game. I mean, last week, when the span of 4 days, I hit 3 podiums in every single sport of so rare. No, like
That's awesome.
seriously,
Dude, no, no,
NBA,
I'm not joking. That's
baseball,
impressive.
and football. And so like you don't realize these things, but like at some point you're just like you're like me as the user. The coup de grace is to win a Yamal, to win a Jude. Like
Right.
that would be the epitome of success for me in so rare. And I mean, this is coming from you and I talk a lot about strategy and like
Yeah.
how to manipulate the market. I mean, I remember the conversation we had, and you had this with Laird at some point too. Like you and I were talking like 2 or 3 years ago. And you're like,
Okay.
why don't you just buy that Donnarumma right now, play him this week, list him as soon as the
Oh
break
yeah.
starts, and
I
sell him
mean,
again. And I
I
did that.
mean,
I got like third, you know, like, but like these are the kind of things that you and I have been talking about for years. And like, and
I,
these are the things that make sense from a strategy perspective, which you know I love.
I'll be honest. My probably one of my biggest silver regrets is not going harder, and I don't blame anybody in particular. I probably just talked to too many people about like, why aren't we doing this rather than just doing? Because
Yeah.
that just wasn't the way people played so rare. But if you I think I've always seen So Rare more transactional than
Mm-hmm.
like emotional.
Yeah.
And you realize a lot of the people that have been on the platform for a really long time are actually the opposite. And even though they say that they're not, they are like emotional about a card. They're either emotional about the card because they really like the card, or they're emotional about the card because of what they paid for the card, which then
Mm-hmm.
that influences their decision. That influences, hey, I got, Verts this midweek at Liverpool. I know I paid a ton of money. That's a bad spot. Right. I have this random Scottish U23 dude who I only paid $4 for, but he's in a much
Mm-hmm.
better spot. How many people still play Verts? A
Yeah.
lot. A lot of people
Of
do because
course.
they're like, well, I'm gonna play the Verts guy. And then you make the excuse. I don't know. I don't know if the Scottish guy's gonna play. He's not as good as him. If Verts has 100, I'll never forgive myself. I used the example this week on Monday with Laird, but like it was really stupid in hindsight, like results wise. But
Yeah.
I'll defend it to the end. But I bought a Jonathan Rodriguez from Portland. He's a winger
Of course. Yeah.
to play over Lionel Messi.
Okay.
And again, there's context that goes in that, but just the normal reaction from somebody that hears that, they're like, all right, let me get off this podcast. There's an idiot that hosts it. Like, I'm not gonna listen to him. But the reason was me trying to do like cost benefit analysis, going, I think there's a really good chance that Messi could rotate. I know it's Messi, but it's also not the greatest matchup. I'm looking up and down my lineup and going, my God, like how sick is it gonna be if the guy that screws me up here as Lionel Messi because he
Right.
comes off the bench or anything like that? This other guy, know like I think there's a lot more strategy in the game than people give it credit for. And some of the
Mm-hmm.
people that are calling the game still really boring are the people that are giving the strategy no thought.
Well, and that's the thing, right? You can't like we. This has been a common thing. Like it's people have said you need like one of two things to be successful in Sorare. You need a lot of money to buy the best players, or you need a lot of time to figure out what you're going to do. And
That's fair.
I've been adamant that that's not true. You need both. You need both of those things because it's one thing to have a stacked gallery. You have to understand how to work that gallery and manipulate that gallery and use it effectively.
Yeah,
Because putting a Bayern stack up against Borussia Dortmund typically isn't like the best thing to do in the world. Like maybe that's not a good example because Bundesliga is huge scoring, but like there are examples like you're talking about there where you can't just always put Messi and Alba
yeah,
and Busquets
yeah,
and Suarez together. Like it
yeah,
doesn't work every single week. There are things to take into account. And the way I look at it is that yes, I'm going to be wrong a fair amount of times. But
yeah.
that's okay because I trust my process because I know that my process, even though I'm not going to win this week, it has won me like 25 other times. So like I'm
Right,
not
right.
like I know that what I'm doing is effective. And do I get frustrated? Of course I get frustrated. Everyone gets frustrated. But I say,
For
well,
sure.
you made a stupid decision, Bob. Let's go again next week. And it's just like the way I look at this is that every issue that I have, I'm like, well, that good. Okay. You screwed that one up, Bob. Learn from it now. right?
Right.
Because this is what life is, Keith. And you and I were talking about this the other day. Like,
Yep.
I don't get any better at sober. I don't even get any better at life if like everything is easy for me. If
No, exactly.
I just keep doing things the same way, I don't learn anything. So my whole approach has been deal with the crap that's in front of you and try to learn from it. And what I've like, this is what I've kind of taken this approach to So Rare because things have changed so much. I mean, and
Yeah.
you can remember 2 years ago when, I told Laird, just play 240, take their money. Like
Right. Just keep
all of a
going.
sudden the game shifted so hard, but I'm not complaining. It's just like I
Just
shift
a
up,
strategy.
understand, and keep moving forward and making sure that I had things in place so I didn't get stuck. And I think that's one of the things, and it's kind of like based on like my background, like my engineering background, is that I think way far down in the future
Right.
as to where things are going to go. So I try to plan for those inevitabilities. And MPen is one of my buddies. I've been talking to him. We've been
It's
in
a
the
great
same
guy.
group with hoodwinking those guys for years. And so like he sent me like his early articles, his first article that came out that pissed you and Laird off. And I was like, you're fundamentally right here. And so like you start understanding and
Right.
using the data to figure out how you are going to go when things get a little hairy down the road.
Right.
So yeah.
Do you ever feel targeted, that they targeted you for your 240 exploitation, and the moment that you decided to say it out loud, they changed it?
Obviously.
Obviously.
Obviously. Well, I mean, that's like a running joke on their show. Like, whenever I type something in, like, someone's always like, Bob said something. Game's
Is it
about to
gonna get
change again.
wrecked? Is it gonna
You
get
know?
wrecked? It
Yeah.
was so
So,
funny because I feel like that show you did with him, so many I mean, I still blame you. I bought a what was his name? I probably did okay with him, but I think I bought an Acre Exeti or something.
yeah. Yeah, dude. I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah. Yep. I
Like
just sold mine.
Liga 2, let's see.
Dude, it worked really well. I mean,
It did. I
let's
mean, it
be
was
honest. And that was another thing. They weren't expensive, so it made
right.
sense for a cap.
Right.
But while I was doing that, I was also winning enough that I was getting good
Yep.
cards to come back, and I was buying better players so
Right.
that not only was I hitting the thresholds at that range, right? I was also winning competitions and getting better and better cards that were super rares there. So like all of this stuff kind of combines. You don't really hear about the purchases that I made outside of that with the winnings that came that allowed me to continue to be
Right.
successful
Right.
when the
Right.
game changed. And so it's something that I've always done. It's how I approach everything that happens in this game,
Yeah.
understanding, of course, that I'm going to be wrong a whole bunch of times. And that's okay because one of the things that makes me happy is that we have our group of friends that we talk to like on the daily,
Mhm.
right? And then like I have other groups of friends that I talk to in text message chains, my
Yeah,
buddies over at Sorare in the States, and we always talk about these things. And the nice thing is I take pleasure in when my friends win,
for sure.
which sounds very self-sacrificing and everything, and I'm not that good of a person. I'd much rather you lose and me win, Keith.
For sure.
But
But you're like, I would like
but
you to get
it's
second.
yeah, like I'm perfectly fine with that. But at the same time, it's really cool because I know that like when ZM Star hits a podium, which he did a couple weeks ago,
Awesome.
we can go on the Sits podcast and we can watch him rip his roar. We can watch him rip his essence to see
Right.
what kind of card he's getting, and it's fun. And it's just like at that quick adrenaline. It's not just me that's winning these things, and I kind of like that about this. And it's one of the reasons that I don't know what I would be doing without So Rare right now because it's a community, man, like more so
Yeah.
than anything else. And I think that's why it kills me a little bit to read all the negativity from experienced users.
So I was actually gonna ask you because like as you talk, I'm so glad I had you on this week because I do think that right now from a community standpoint that we're definitely in a trough.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I it's like a trough. I completely understand everybody that's upset. Like
Mhm.
I'm like, yep, I think that's a valid point. Not trying to tell you that is wrong or anything, but I'm also kind of like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, are you gonna stop or are you gonna keep playing this game? Because ultimately, like, it's a game.
Yeah.
You want to win as much money as you possibly can. We're all. I don't play DFS. I play DFS because not only is it fun for me, but I can win money too, and I'm good at it. Right,
Mhm.
similar to you, a server. So, I have a what do you think? What do you think is the biggest reason that right now, even though it's so rare is in a trough, that everybody's telling you that the game sucks, that you still have so much energy towards it and you're so fired up about it?
Because in the life cycle of games, in the life cycle of work, the longer you've been somewhere, the worse you feel about the things you're doing.
Yep.
So think about that. Like,
Yep.
do you remember when you first, like the first date you went on with your wife? Like you're over the moon. You're like, holy crap, I might actually love this person. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Sure.
and it's just like all of this built up, like it's just everything. And then like
Sure.
over time, your partner becomes your best friend and the dynamic shifts a little bit,
For
especially
sure.
when you have kids and everything. And it's that understanding that things change and it's fine to get angry about it, but what you don't want to do is burn down the house with it. And that's what I worry
Good point.
about when it comes to this stuff. And I recognize that with that change, I am set up in such a way that I can actually adjust and go. And I'm also one of the few on here that just doesn't give a flying dump truck about just selling guys at a loss because
Yep.
all of those super rares, I probably sold those super rares for a couple grand the other day, which is well lower than what I paid for them,
Yep.
2, 3 years ago. But they've won me thousands of dollars in cards. So I don't care.
Well, you know what's funny about that too? Andy Black said this one time, and it always sticks into me when I think about it, and when I'm like struggling to get rid of a card that I should.
Mhm.
Like those city guys I talked about, like all of those. I mean, that Ruben Diaz was like $1,100. I think I got $100 on that
Yeah.
comment, something like that. And he said, I'm going to misquote him, but essentially they were that price because they were that was their price at the time to win rewards that were also that price at the time. They're
Hmm.
this price now because they're to win these type of rewards. And you could actually argue if you did a little bit of work, you'll find plenty that are underpriced for what they could yield you back. If you just don't look at the top tier, kind of what
Yep.
we talked about Monday, when we were talking about the Real Madrid stack. Like if you were going pure ROI, not just gross, but a pure like ROI measure, does it actually make the most sense to have the most expensive player at every single position for one lineup? It probably doesn't. It probably doesn't. Um,
But
but
it's fun, Keith. It's
it
fun.
is. But so I guess where I was trying to go with this too is I sometimes wonder if a lot of the fun is out of the game, especially for the bigger galleries,
Mhm.
because they have so many cards. They also have the memories of what they once won, right? They remember having 25,000, $35,000 weekends, and obviously that's not in the cards now. But I think they also like, as I talked with Sean a good amount, and sometimes despite this huge gallery he has, I feel like he'll get like more joy when this like gut feeling he has that he put in this random guy from a lower side like over Kimmich. Like he didn't play
Yeah.
Kimmich there and he played this other guy and it worked out. Like I feel like that's still where a lot of my joy comes in. It's the community and then it's also that I, I still find joy in going I'm going to try to outsmart everybody here. I'm going to find my own little angle and it's the game within the game. And I really do think even talking to you right now, that's what I'm kind of hearing from you too. It's like all these angles that you're taking, and like that's what keeps you fired up.
Yeah. Well, and it's when you hit on something like that, when you're like, you know what, I'm not sure about Musiala in U23.
Right.
And you know what? I have these Celtic cards, and I've got this Arn Engels, and he's on set pieces. And you know what? He hasn't scored in a while, but he's taken PKs and he's taking corners. And you're like, you
Sure.
know what? I'm playing Arn. And he gets an immediate assist on a corner to
Yeah.
Liam Scales. And then
Feels
someone gets
great.
pulled out of the box and he scores the PK. And all of a sudden he's at 95. You're like, holy crap, that's awesome. I don't care that, my Saliba just got a red card and just
Right.
completely tanked my team. I mean, I obviously care, but it was really cool.
Yep.
And there's a difference. I think a lot of people would probably say this. There's a difference between when I win with studs, when a competition
Yep.
with studs, versus when I podiumed in unique with like the scrubbiest
Crap.
scrubs that they've ever scrubbed a scrub, right?
So much
Like
better.
like it was wild. And like I
Yep.
remember like talking to you and they're like, how the hell did you do
Yep.
that? That is like those
I
guys are
mean,
garbage.
I mean, my single best day on soda ever was winning underdog because I had the most random group of guys, but
Yep.
I like went into that game week just hyper focused on this one competition. But Sebastian Blanco, bless his soul. What a legend. I
Yep.
miss that guy. I actually truly miss that dude. Um,
Yeah, man. It's
I
it hits differently.
it,
And like
it,
yeah,
it
it's
does. I guess that's kind of what I want to like. I'm trying to like
yeah,
say right now to anybody that's listening to this is if you do feel like you've lost some of the joy in the game, maybe just reevaluate like what's gonna bring you the joy. Because,
yes.
you know, we kind of started this a lot of different tangents, but we talked about my city stuff. My
Mhm.
city guys brought me no joy. When they played well, I'm a Liverpool fan. I'm like, F, City won. And then one guy got benched, and I would be frustrated. I actually don't get nearly like pissed off and like my day's ruined. I'm just like, like I think it was this past weekend, Ruben Diaz sat randomly. I'm like, why? And I think I told Harry and Laird this. I'm like, what? Just why? Why? Why am I? And Harry had Diaz too. And I think I broke the news to him that Diaz wasn't in the squad. And it's just like, why? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Yeah.
Why?
Well,
I'd
you know,
much rather do it. I would much rather take a be convinced about this random J League guy that nobody knows and play him a lineup, and then him sit. And I'll be like, well, it was worth a shot. I gave it a
yeah.
go.
I mean, like, I want to give a shout out to So Around a Budget because So Around a Budget got me to like Dundee.
Okay,
You're
Dundee
like
United.
what?
Okay.
Like not no, not Dundee United,
Oh,
Dundee.
Dundee. Okay, see, I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
even know there was a difference between the two.
yeah. And so I had a bunch of cards, and like in one of their young U23s, he messaged me. He's like, "It's going up on an auction," and he's like, "No one's gonna bid on this." So I just put like the base bid.
Yeah,
Went on auction. It's for like 85, like goal and assist. I'm like, that is awesome. Like that's what this game truly is about. Now, no one else around him did well,
right.
but it was awesome because
Still felt good.
it is a not top five league. Like the SPFL is still a lot of fun, right?
Right.
But it's not even a top team in the SPFL. It's a team that like you've grown to like, and it's weird. I'm a Dundee fan now. Like
Eh,
it just kind of happened, and so I sold a lot of those cards since then. But I still follow them. I still get the Foot Mob
that's
updates
cool.
on them all the time because it's kind of cool because you're sharing these things with other people, and it's fun to watch what happens, and the wins just hit differently. And
Yeah.
it's gonna sound very like whalish, but like the wins are a little bit different. If you are expecting to win, it doesn't always hit the same.
Oh yeah.
Like nothing will ever hit the same as your first podium or your
Yep.
first win. You're like, holy crap, that
For sure.
just happened,
I
right?
still remember my first threshold, for four
Yeah.
years or whatever. Like needed Igor Akinfeev to have like a crazy game, and he did. Um,
Yes.
but you know what? You just hit something there too that I didn't think about Monday when we did the show about it. But we were talking a little bit about like the Real Madrid stack,
Hmm.
and it doesn't. It's almost like your win is a relief, and then when they underperform, it's like it probably almost feels personal because you're like, dude, I trusted you guys with like $5,000 of my money, and you did this. You lost 4-0 to Barcelona at home. Really? I'm
Yep.
gonna get relegated because you guys like. I didn't really think about that from that feeling aspect. That it probably does. You're just like, look, man, like I put a lot out here. Now I'm gonna have to go to Division 2 because you know like what am I gonna do? Like as the user, I'm speaking from that person's mind. I played Courtois. He started. I played Militao. He started. I played Bellingham. He started. I played Mbappe and Vinny Jr. What am I supposed to do? Right?
Well, it's. I'm glad you bring this up, Keith, because we started the show talking about baseball a little bit, and so
Yeah.
we're after. I did this in baseball. I was winning at unique and
Okay.
super rare, like man, but the stress levels
So
were
tough
so much higher.
because you
And
like felt like the win was like a relief. Like
like I
you
have to win.
had
Like
to.
I,
You
I
had.
need to win.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I ended up doing is I sold all of that. And people were like, oh man, baseball's in a bad spot if Bob is selling out. And I remember YNW is like, Bob is the exact person you need in this game. If he's selling out, you've got problems. they made the change to in-season rewards, and I was like, boom, Bob's back in.
Right back in.
I'm gonna use my whale wallet here, my super rare, my unique money that I saved, and I'm gonna buy all the limiteds. And there's a big difference between being a limited whale versus like a whale unique
Hmm.
and super rare. At
Yep.
limited, you are less worried, at least from my perspective. At least I am less worried about my guys sucking one week.
Or
And
injury.
I can absorb that, or injury, because I can absorb that.
Yep.
It's easier. When Rodri goes down, I'm not down $1,500, right?
Or think about unique Rodri, right?
Yeah.
Unique in season Rodri. You spent what
Yeah.
20 grand on? Like,
And Keith, I got to tell you, I had so much fun playing limited baseball this year that I decided to do the exact same thing with the exact same strategy in basketball because
okay.
I'm having fun with it and I'm not as anxious
Yep.
if I don't hit a reward. Like it just, I move on to the next thing. I'm like, all right, I got some essence. You know what? I'm going to wait till T3. I'm going to rip that bad boy and get nobody, and it's going to be fantastic. You know,
Well, and the reality though too, like even if you go to that the limited level is just in one week, you have one good week and you make it, you could potentially pay for the whole thing.
yeah, I mean, in basketball, we've had like 4 or 5 game weeks. I think I've already pulled in like $750, which almost pays for like my entire spend.
I mean, and
Like
now
having
you're
the season.
free rolling fun and profit the rest of the rest of the season.
And I use this as an example. In baseball, I spent a lot up front, about $1,500 to $2,000 up front for limited cards. And what I did, Keith, is that I bought the studs and then I bought all of the team to get their bonuses up,
Yep,
to get their
yep, I've heard
pluses up,
this.
right?
I've
So
heard
I,
it's
I did it at the beginning of the season because timing mattered, right? But my idea was I can use Solar FP. I can use top tier projections in basketball. I can use NBA
yep,
Jet in basketball. And I'm willing to bet on myself and the tools that I use to make
yep.
that money back. And what ended up happening is that $1,500 I spent on baseball, I probably made close to 8 or 9 grand in baseball this
Isn't
year,
that sensational?
just in limited, right? Because they changed how the game was working. They
Right.
changed a lot of things. And I'm waiting on my last podium reward, which is a special edition postseason card.
Ooh,
And like
that's
my
fun.
logic is I can do this in basketball too. And now where I struggle is, am I successful? Because there's only been a couple seasons of both US sports. There's not as many people, there's not as many users. Like
Yeah,
there's reasons why I focus on this one a lot
yeah.
more than doing it in the football side. Because I don't, to your point earlier about like solar and like soccer being just like you can't like project points and like the
Right.
stats are not the stats. It's a completely different animal when it comes right down to it. So I don't feel as comfortable using that approach on the football side. I just
Nor
simply
should you.
don't.
Nor should
Yeah.
you. Because
Yeah.
it's not as analytical. But I do you did I hear this right? At one point you said I win in baseball and basketball so that I can blow it in football. Is that still
Absolutely.
accurate?
It is. I use baseball and I mean, I want all that money that I want in baseball. I turned around and I would text my friends like, "Hey, just won another competition in baseball, another $500. Who can we buy?" They're like,
who, who
buy Verts, buy a Verts Classic." I'm like, "Okay, boom,
So
got them."
are you matchup mixing much in football? Like, if you look at that U23 lineup, you
Mm-hmm.
see you're all but, one guy there. Like let's just say all of your guys are in nut matchups, but versus away to Bayern.
Yeah,
Are
he's not
you
playing.
what's that?
Verts isn't playing in that instance.
Right.
Like,
So
yeah,
I mean, are you snatching somebody else up from the market, like based on like pick scores, or are you, have a deep enough gallery that you're going? Like what's your
my
strategy in this
gallery's
situation?
my gallery's so deep. Like, I
So you
don't
don't
need
need
to do
to.
that. I mean, so like, if Verts isn't playing, right? I'm like, well, you know what? I have Musiala, but
Right.
it's going to be a tough matchup with Musiala. So I have Saka. Who's Saka playing against? Oh, it's going to be a tough matchup. Okay, who's Engels playing
Right.
against?
You have enough. You have
Is
enough
Celtic
guys.
is Celtic home? Is Adam Zettner over in Paderborn in German Bundesliga 2, who's been averaging like 1,000 points
Yeah.
a game? Like I am so deep all over. Like Bogush, like is he playing at home today? Like, are he and
See,
Bouanga going to score a ton? Like these are all the things that I'm putting together, Keith, and I have such depth with it that inevitably I'm going to make mistakes. Like, and I
of
get
course,
that,
of course.
but I don't feel that I need to buy anybody else because my buys legitimately to get better there are Jude Bellingham, Yamal,
Right.
and I'm not about to spend. I say I'm not about to spend, but
Right.
I just don't feel the need to spend that money because Kokchu. from Benfica,
Right.
our old buddy. Like
Still good.
he's he's like my sixth best midfielder in U23, which sounds utterly insane right now,
But then the
right?
great part is you can just throw them in the challenger if you're not using them for there.
That's exactly what it
I
is.
I think I'm gonna be in U23 with you soon, Bob. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, I accidentally got in there too, like you said before. So Essence, I ripped a T3 Essence and I got Bakayoko from PSG.
Ooh, yeah,
And
I
I
have
saw
a
the
sense
store in the
decent.
States, and ZM Star Zach is like, dude, you might as well like look at your gallery. You might as well just play U23. And I was like, okay.
Well,
And so like I
you
shipped
know,
it. And it's like accidents.
I don't know if you're the type of stubborn personality, and maybe you don't even admit that you're stubborn. Like I don't admit that I'm stubborn, but then I have moments where I realize that just there was some sort of block up here. I wasn't paying attention, but I haven't outwardly complained about this, but I do like the thing that I've missed with like the whole segment. I'm gonna call it segmentation of the divisions, not even divisions of the regions.
Yeah.
Is that there was something just special in like All Star or All Star Rare Plus about just you've got your Austrian league guy mixed with J League, random K League. There's Russia, and just like and I've heard Harry, I've heard Laird, I've heard Black, I've heard all these people saying, "Well, U23 is still there," but I just was never a U23 boy, so I
Mhm.
just never put it in. But God, I could go back to having even more fun in U23. I like as you're talking about this, and I'm just like yeah, Bob, you go with your verts. I'm gonna find some random second Bundesliga guy that's gonna outscore verts. Like or like second lead France. There's
Yep. There's tons of guys, man. And that's what's
well, it
great about
opens the
it.
whole pool back up. And then to
Yeah.
your point, I was meant to interrupt you earlier to say this, but you were talking about how they eventually become champ guys. I was also gonna say not only do they become champ guys, but for a lot of these guys that are doing very well, especially if they're doing very well in like, you know, the in the champion division, they're in Serie A, they're in, Ligue 1, something like that. Well, when they step up, they're more primed to keep doing it.
Mhm.
Like they're you're supposed to get better as you age and get more experience, not get worse. We know some do that, but that's a really good hedge. Like, for them to become your classic guys versus, you're aged out. I would never speak ill of my boy Hector Herrera, but he did just try to spit on a ref. So
Yeah. Good
that
old Ache Ache. Yeah.
wasn't the best movies ever made.
No.
But like, those guys you have to worry about that they age out, that they find a cliff or
Yeah.
they're out of contract or they just go to an uncovered league. Like
Yep.
all these things. U23 guys, man.
No. I mean, and the thing is, I'm okay shipping guys off at a loss, like I said before,
Oh, for sure.
like from
For
what
sure.
I paid, and like I recognize that there's a lot of these guys that I will move off. I just get rid of them, like
Yeah,
when they are about to age out. And the trick is, you find like who you're actually using and who you're going to use in the future. Like, am I
correct.
going to really be playing Kang and Lee from PSG all the time?
Not very much
Maybe,
because he's not doesn't, but
maybe
he rotation risk guy.
if an injury happens and
Yep,
then he's starting permanently, like
true.
he's a stud. I'm like, well, you know what? He also starts for his national
I
team
was
if
gonna
he
say, doesn't
doesn't
he
sub
start for
off.
them? Yep.
And so you have to figure all these things out because at the end of the day, I can sell any of these guys at any point. Right?
Right.
If you're willing to take a loss, you can sell anything.
Yep.
Right? And I'm usually like, okay, just send me what you think is fair. Okay, that's fine.
Close
I'm
enough.
not I am not pinching as much to like get there because when I sell a card, Keith, I'm not selling it just to have cash
Right.
in my wallet. I am selling it because I have a target and I need funds to get that guy. If I sell Kang In Lee, if I sell Kokchu, I'm selling them because I've gotten so sick of not winning D1 that I'm getting a Jude.
No, that's
Like
smart.
that's how my mind works. Like
No, I love it.
I always have another target. So I don't like having money sitting in my account, which I do right now. And I'm kind of like panicking. I don't know what to do with it. I'm like, should I buy the entire Celtics team in limited or should I buy Jude? Like, what should I do?
That's so
And
funny.
it's yeah.
I've been searching for a avenue for like my next plan, and
Mhm.
I I think you've given it to me. Like this is an exciting thought. Well, no, I also love. I don't know about you. One of the things I really enjoyed about So Rare when I first got on, um, was just learning all these players.
Yep.
Um, and sometimes when I go on to like look up a guy, I'm like, I already have like my preconceived notions, like, oh, you suck, you're
Mhm.
good. But like I feel like I know all the guys. But U23, man, that always recycles. There's always these guys that are stepping up into new roles.
Yep.
It's a
Well,
fun,
and think about it.
it's a fun
Think about
thought.
that, Keith. If you win U23 D1 and you win them all in season, that is like a prime card,
Oh, it's so
right?
good.
Like
It's so
you
fun.
sell it for $1,500, and then you buy the classic season Yamal for $700.
Right.
You're now $800 up, and you still have a Yamal.
Right.
Like, and this is kind of how like my brain works. I don't need the in-season Jude. I don't need the in-season Yamal. I can
Correct.
sell them, take the money that I got from them, get the classic one, and just keep rolling as we
Or,
go.
like, in your situation too, like let's say that you win an in season Yamal, you get to at least entertain that conversation based on where your bankroll is at too. Like, is this actually a linchpin for me to go play La Liga in season
Right.
right now? Like, could that
And
be
even champ too, right? Like
right?
okay,
Right.
so I just won Yamal. I have Burmo, who's been on fire. I've got Romero from Tottenham. Like I've got these studs spread out. I'm like, oh,
Well,
I've
you
got
know
a
what?
spare keeper. Maybe I'll use Musiala in here. You know what I mean?
I agree with that, but I'll tell you this, and I'll let another strategy part
Yeah.
here, or at least how I see it.
Yeah.
I think if you have a premium in season card that like you win like Yamal, and you just go, look, I want this. I'm gonna keep this with my as a, not only as a trophy, but as an awesome card. Like all of these things, I'm not gonna sell the card.
Yep.
I think anytime you get that type of linchpin, that is so much more valuable in a smaller segment in competition than it is when you open up the whole thing. Like
Right.
I think that that's
100%.
I think that's one thing people have done a lot wrong, which is what you're saying. I'm not trying to say that you're doing it wrong, but they see their gallery. They go, okay, now I got a Yamal. I've got Romero in England. I've got, let's just pretend Dembele's out. So I got King Lee in France. I've
Yep.
got, trying to think of, I got DeMarco in Italy. Like I got, cool. That's a great champ lineup. There's so much more variance in champ when you bring all of these leagues together because now you got to bring in I'm trying to remember who it was this past weekend in Germany. Oh, it was Marmouche's team. What team is that? Oh my god. I can't remember. They're black
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
red. But Marmouche's team, I can
Oh
remember
yeah.
colors.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can remember colors of jerseys, but they won 8-2.
Yeah.
They scored 8 goals.
Yeah.
Marmouche dropped 100 easy. Sure, a number of other people. That's not happening in La Liga very often. That's not
Never.
even happening in Serie A very often. It happens
Mhm.
in Germany. So you're bringing in a guy like Marmouche and all the other guys on his team that scored 8 goals in to compete with your Yamal for no good reason. Like I think like a Yamal card should almost always be placed in like a La Liga or maybe like a U23 comp.
And I think that's great. Like I hadn't even like, thought of that because like we know that these things happen. We know in Germany they're much higher scoring, and so that's
Or
a
France, right? Or
great
France.
strategy to play.
PSG's won a couple games 5-6-0. And you're
Yep.
just like, really? Really? You're gonna hunt me down with a Marco Asensio? Really? Like, I
It's
don't want to see
brutal.
that, right?
Yeah. I
But
mean, I almost bought him. He was
well,
like $30.
all right, we're gonna go over a minute or two. I hope you have. Do you have a
That's
minute or
fine.
two? So
Yeah, of course,
I
dude.
just got came with another thought. Do you
Keith, I
remember
could talk
like
to you all day about this.
I know,
So
I know, same here. Same here. Like it's a good thing that I have a heart out here in like 15. But do you remember? And I'm assuming we don't really use it that much anymore. I'm assuming so. There. Remember on impact players and server data.
yeah, of course.
I remember back in the day, like thinking when I got Carl's skill that I paid 2,000, $3,000, whatever 1.6 ETH was, is what I paid for my Carl's skill. Okay.
I paid
Uh,
2.5 for mine.
okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
We're
so
both.
I'm with you. Yeah.
But I
Yep.
remember thinking I had this card. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I gotta use this right. Like I didn't have like a super deep calorie, but I gotta use it right. Remember we would like
Hmm.
go, okay, are people going to use this card in All Star Rare Pro? Or are they going to use it in Champion America Rare Pro? Oh my God, are you actually going to use it in D4 Champ America? You're only going to use, you're going to have that card kind of card in Rare, and you're not going to play it in Rare Plus. Like, we used to be so strategic with our cards. And now it's just like,
Yeah.
gotta get done with this. Oh, thank God the button's here. Now I'm gonna save 30 minutes. Click, done. I'm out of here. Right. But like I feel like that's what's happened. And
So
like there used to
do
be
you,
so much more strategy.
do you think that the change in not needing as much strategy has led to, for some people at least, less enjoyment and a lot
100%.
more of the anxiety within the game? Like
I don't
when
think
you
it's
just like dump
anxiety.
something. Well, I mean, maybe anxiety is the wrong word, but just like frustration with the game, like with all the
Right.
negativity that's going on. Like when you stop strategizing because you're like, you know what, I'm in D3. I just don't care. I'm just going to drop my cards in here. I'm not going to think about it. Like your
Yep.
whole attitude changes
And
because
then
it's
you don't
not
get promoted.
because most people are just relatively impatient. Like I want
Yep.
to be in D1 right away. Most
Yep.
people aren't going to
Yep.
do what I did. I ripped a Bakayoko and I was like, you know what? Well, I have three teams in D4, U23. Let's try to get them to D1 and then
Exactly.
like do it within
Exactly.
like a month. You know what I mean? And like not as many people are built that way for the long-term planning from what I see. And I see a lot of immediate reactions. And I think that if we as a community, if you want to really have fun with it, you have to understand like what your end term goals are and what the time
Yep.
frame for them are, because you and I both know, especially with your Betis kind of strategy, like
Yeah.
you have to have short term implemented plans
Yep.
because the game can change at any point, which will adjust what you have to do to continue to be successful. And part of the skill of So Rare is being able to build your teams to win, obviously, but to be ready for the inevitable changes that are going to happen. And I think that's why it's vital to listen to people like Laird. I mean, Laird's Friday show, Keith, is
It's the best.
phenomenal.
It's the best
It
show
is
in soda
phenomenal.
content right now.
Yeah. And
And
it's
it's
just,
because of
it's
the
just
chat. It's
straightforward.
because of the chat. It's
Yeah.
because of there's idea coming from here, this way, and he doesn't really filter the negative from the positive. Like he doesn't cherry
Yep.
pick that you're gonna have like he only wants the good comments and he just respond to all of them. So like
Yep.
absolutely think it's the best. But no, I really do think just talking this out with you that maybe a lot of people just the reality is they don't have a goal. They don't really have I don't even want to say an end game because I don't think that's necessarily they just don't my goal is to win. Okay, but like
But
how?
like,
Oh,
so I
just
mean,
I'm just gonna have all the best players. Like that's not really a
and
plan. That was just put together.
this is where my personality comes in because, like I said, I'm an engineer. Like I lead, I'm a director, make major projects and financial kind of projects, right? So like I have to understand what's going on. This is how my whole life has revolved, right? And so like this is how I approach these things,
Yep.
and I know that you've talked to a lot of other people like what you do in the background, like, and this is why I am who I am. Like it's numbers
Yeah.
based, it's focused, it's there's a clear plan and path to get to where I'm going, and there's a reason behind every action. Like I said, like if I'm selling somebody, if you hear of me selling somebody, it's because I have a target to buy,
Right. Right.
right? And so like I think that more people would find more enjoyment if they were able to do something like that and have those kind of long-term and short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. Recognizing, of course, that long-term goals are nearly impossible
Yep.
in silver. But when I say, hey, I'm going to play U23 all year, the goal is to win U23 D1. If I do that, I can get an awesome card and I'm going to be super happy. And that's my trophy
Yep.
for So Rare.
I
Like
love
that
it.
is a very, like everybody in So Rare can have that goal. They can do that. Like it doesn't, you don't need the kind of cards that I have. I've
Yep.
been fortunate because I've won. I mean, we've been here since, COVID, right? Like at the start of 2021. So like
Yeah.
we understand how to do these things. But like that's why these shows are so valuable when it comes down to, because if I found in life that when I'm just like wandering lost, I feel worse about myself. I feel
I agree with
worse
that.
about the things that I'm doing. Like I said before, I need obstacles that challenge me that I fail at. And for me, failing is the most important part of life. Because without failure, like you never learn who you actually are. And I
That's
think this comes over to So Rare as well, which is just a vital thing to understand what makes you happy. how can you succeed? And closing your eyes and throwing a dart doesn't typically work. And
I,
it's why I've always been against people saying just buy a Bayern stack and put it in. Like there's more to it than
yep.
that. So
There's more fun to be had, dude. That's an
yeah,
amazing ending for this. Thank you so much for your time, and make sure to check Bob out. I have his Twitter handle here. Make sure you check out Soar FP if you are considering getting into baseball and basketball. All right, see you, everybody.
better guys.